Ilia Topuria says he's back. What you think about that?
He better be, because I'm supposed to fight him in June on the White House card.
Uh-oh.
That's who I'm fighting.
Oh, that's who you want.
That's who I have to have. That's why I fought for this thing. White House in June, let's go.
What's next?
Ilia Topuria on the White House. Has to be. Has to be. No other option.
Hell yeah.
Let's go.
Walking out of the Oval Office into the cage, wearing the flag.
Entertaining.
I think we're gonna main event it. I think we'll be the main event.
Boom.
Let's go. Once in a lifetime.
I'm totally guessing, throwing shit against the wall right now.
Yeah. Universe.
But I mean, what else?
You know what I think will probably happen? You know what I think will probably happen?
We'll see it.
I think there'll be co-headline. You'll be one of them, so that they can say, like, the man who's never had a bad fight definitely here. So that's
Ilia Topuria's career is about to take a turn that nobody saw coming. And I'm not talking about another featherweight defense or some easy money fight. I'm talking about a complete dismantling of everything you thought you knew about this sport's hierarchy. Because while everyone's been debating whether his knockout of Volkanovski was legitimate, Topuria's been planning something that's going to make that conversation completely irrelevant. He's not just coming back to prove a point. He's coming back to rewrite the entire landscape of mixed martial arts. And the target he's set his sights on, it's going to shock you.
McGregor's going to fight me, and we'll be main event anyway.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, never had a bad fight. Okay.
Yeah, it would be if Ilia didn't come back, they would strip him. I'd become the undisputed, and then McGregor gets to fight whoever he wants. So I guess that would be an option.
About a rematch with Volk, but the one thing that we have to acknowledge as fans is Volk's never asked for a rematch. Volk's got nothing to do at 45 that anybody wants to see. This is all pretend. We're pretending. But we would like to see him go up to 55. That would be interesting if Volk, much like he challenged Islam, challenged Ilia. I digress. I'm sharing Volk.
Let me break down exactly what's happening here, because the whispers and rumors don't tell the full story. Yes, there are people out there saying Topuria caught Volk at the perfect moment, that it was one round, maybe a questionable stoppage, and suddenly he's being treated like the next coming of Anderson Silva. But here's what those doubters are missing completely. That criticism, that questioning of his legitimacy, isn't weakening Topuria's position. It's fueling something much more dangerous. Every single person who says his knockout was lucky, every analyst who questions whether he's the real deal, every fan who thinks Volkanovski just had an off night, they're all contributing to the creation of a monster. Because Topuria isn't the type of fighter who lets doubt linger. He's the type who turns skepticism into absolute destruction. And his next move is going to silence every single critic permanently.
But that win brings into question that they'd only completed one round, and that round was won by Volk.
Now here's where this gets absolutely wild. Topuria isn't satisfied with just shutting up the featherweight critics. He's looking at the entire sport and asking himself a question that should terrify every champion above 145 pounds. Why stop here? Think about what actually happened when he knocked out Volkanovski. It wasn't just a knockout. It was psychological warfare at its finest. Volk, the man who many considered the pound-for-pound king, hasn't said a word about a rematch. Radio silence. Complete and total silence from a guy who built his career on bouncing back from adversity. That's not coincidence. That's what happens when a fighter breaks not just your body, but your spirit. And Topuria knows it. He knows that kind of dominance, that ability to make elite fighters question whether they ever want to face you again, that transcends weight classes. That's not a featherweight skill. That's a championship mentality that works at any level.
But we lose the right to have that discussion and not just crown Ilia the greatest 45-pounder ever. We lose that right when the principal, who's Volk, never said, I want to try that again. It's relevant. It's very relevant to the story. If everybody just sat down and goes, this is the best guy, we don't have a debate. We got nothing to fight.
But here's the kicker, and this is where most people are getting the story completely wrong. Topuria's lightweight ambitions aren't some recent development. This isn't him getting cocky after beating Volkanovski and thinking he can conquer the world. No, this goes way deeper than that. Before he ever held featherweight gold, before he ever stepped in the cage with Volk, Topuria was already calling out Islam Makhachev. He was already demanding a lightweight title shot. Think about the audacity of that for a second. A guy who hadn't even won a belt yet was trying to skip an entire division and go straight for the lightweight crown. Most people called it delusional. Dana White basically laughed him off. Khabib himself told him to earn it first. But you know what? That rejection didn't crush his spirit. It crystallized his mission. He went out and absolutely demolished the featherweight division specifically to prove he belonged in that lightweight conversation. This wasn't plan B, this was always the plan.
Is the greatest of all time, which, by the way, I heard on TV 1 week ago, and I came on this channel and I repeated 1 week ago. Do I have the right to say that? After Ilia stomped him out in decisive fashion inside of 8 minutes. Shouldn't I say that Ilia is the greatest 45-pounder of all time?
And get this, the psychological element of what Topuria is planning is something we've never seen before in modern MMA. He's not just trying to win a second belt. He's trying to validate a prediction he made about himself before he was even champion. That's a completely different level of mental warfare. When a fighter says, "I'm going to do this," and then actually does it, that creates an aura of inevitability that's almost impossible to combat. Look at what happened with Conor McGregor's rise. The difference is McGregor was all flash and prediction. Topuria's got the finishing ability to back up every single word. He's not just talking about moving up to lightweight. He's talking about hunting down the most dangerous man in the division and taking his throne. That's not confidence. That's borderline psychotic levels of self-belief. And in this sport, that kind of mentality is exactly what separates legends from forgotten names.
Who cares? What difference does it make? Shouldn't we say that Ilia is the greatest 45-pounder of all time? Because we don't. We say it about the guy that Ilia shut off in less than 8 minutes. Fair enough. All right, we're at 155. What do we have to do to say that Ilia is the greatest?
Here's what nobody's talking about, and it's the most important part of this entire story. The lightweight division isn't just another weight class for Topuria. It's personal. When he called out Islam Makhachev before winning the featherweight belt, he wasn't just looking for a big fight. He was making a statement about where he saw himself in the sport's hierarchy. He was essentially saying, "I don't belong with the contenders, I belong with the kings." And when the MMA world told him he wasn't ready, when they said he needed to prove himself first, that became fuel for something much more dangerous than regular ambition. That became obsession. Now he's got the featherweight belt, he's got the knockout of Volkanovski on his resume, and he's got something to prove to everyone who doubted his lightweight credentials. That's a terrifying combination, because this isn't about building a legacy anymore. This is about settling a score with an entire division that didn't take him seriously.
Partly go to Khabib, and I do know that I hear some hardcore, some older guys say BJ Penn. So I think in a discussion, I think Khabib's gonna win that, because after all, it's just a popularity. It's a vote.
Now listen to this part because it reveals everything about Topuria's mindset. When most fighters talk about moving up in weight, they're cautious. They talk about testing the waters, seeing how they feel at the new weight, maybe taking a tune-up fight against a lower-ranked opponent. Not Topuria. When he talks about lightweight, there's only one name that comes out of his mouth: Islam Makhachev. He doesn't want to work his way up the rankings. He doesn't want to prove himself against easier competition. He wants the hardest fight available immediately. That's either the stupidest approach possible, or it's the mindset of someone who genuinely believes he's operating on a different level than everyone else. And based on what we saw happen to Volkanovski, I'm leaning toward the latter. The man isn't just confident in his abilities. He's convinced that he's been fighting below his actual level this entire time. That featherweight was just a stepping stone to where he really belongs.
So what is it that Khabib did that Ilia's got to do? And I don't think that's just title defenses, by the way. I think it's the way you win. I think it's the dominance. And can Ilia, and this is a very relevant question that I'm about to ask you. Can Ilia be the GOAT operating in the same time, the same era as Islam, if those two never meet? As impressive as what Ilia has done.
But wait, it gets worse. Because there's another element to this that makes Topuria's lightweight ambitions even more dangerous than they appear on the surface. Islam Makhachev, for all his dominance, has one small crack in his armor, one moment where he looked human. Remember his fight with Alexander Volkanovski? Yeah, Islam won, but there was a moment in that first round where Volk hurt him. where the seemingly invincible Dagestani looked vulnerable for just a few seconds. Now, most fighters would look at that and think, maybe Islam isn't as untouchable as everyone believes. But Topuria is looking at it differently. He's looking at it and thinking, if Volkanovski could hurt him and I destroyed Volkanovski, then what does that say about what I can do to Islam? That's not just mathematical logic. That's the kind of fighter's logic that creates upsets. Because while Islam's been coasting through lightweight, defending his belt against solid but not spectacular competition, Topuria's been sharpening himself against killers. He's been in wars, he's been tested, and he's come out looking better each time.
Islam's done the same thing. And wouldn't you be forced to say that? Ilia's had one match at 155 pounds, and he won the world title. Islam's had one match at welterweight, and he won the title.
Hold up, did you catch what just happened in that last point? Because there's something even more significant brewing beneath the surface. Topuria isn't just confident he can beat Islam Makhachev. He's confident he can do it in a way that settles the pound-for-pound debate permanently. Think about the narrative he's building. If he moves up to lightweight and knocks out Islam the same way he knocked out Volkanovski, he's not just a two-division champion. He's the guy who solved two different puzzles that nobody else could figure out. He's the guy who took out the featherweight king and the lightweight king in devastating fashion. That's not just championship material. That's GOAT conversation material. And here's the really scary part, he knows it. Every interview, every call-out, every social media post is building toward that moment. He's not just trying to win fights. He's trying to create a legacy-defining moment that puts him in conversations with John Jones, Anderson Silva, and GSP. That level of ambition, combined with his finishing ability, makes him the most dangerous man in the sport right now.
Keeps going. He's a two-division champion. How does Ilia surpass him? And there's a way, right? First off, Islam has a loss. What do you want to do? Everybody, right? It's one of those things. What do you want to do with that? You want to hold that against him? You want to act like that doesn't speak to his greatness as opposed to him getting caught in one moment? And
Here's where it gets absolutely insane, and why I think this lightweight move is going to happen sooner than anyone expects. The UFC loves money, and Topuria versus Makhachev is a financial goldmine waiting to happen. You've got the undefeated Spanish knockout artist against the undefeated Dagestani grappler. You've got the guy who flatlined Volkanovski against the guy who outpointed him. You've got two men who have never lost, both in their primes, both with legitimate claims to being the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Dana White isn't stupid. He sees the dollar signs. He sees the pay-per-view numbers. He sees the international appeal of this fight. Spain versus Dagestan, striker versus grappler, the immovable object versus the unstoppable force. This isn't just a fight that sells itself. This is the kind of super fight that breaks pay-per-view records and creates new stars. And with the UFC always looking for the next Conor McGregor, the next crossover superstar, Topuria represents exactly what they're searching for. A young, hungry, charismatic knockout artist who's not afraid to call out the biggest names in the sport.
Also do have the timeline that Ilia came to that weight class calling out Islam. Islam publicly said no to that fight and went to 170. That statement right there cost me a relationship with Islam Makhachev, by the way. I don't think I've ever told you guys that story. Islam does not like that I make that statement, but that statement is 100% the way it happened.
But here's the kicker that nobody's talking about. The psychological warfare has already begun, and Islam Makhachev might be losing it without even realizing it. Every time Topuria calls him out, every time he talks about moving up to lightweight, every time he mentions Islam's name in an interview, he's planting seeds of doubt. He's making Islam think about him. He's making the lightweight champion wonder, what if this guy actually does what he says he's going to do? That's mental warfare at its finest. Because Islam's been so dominant for so long, he's probably never had to deal with someone who genuinely believes they can walk through him. Most of Islam's opponents show up hoping to win. Topuria would show up expecting to win. That's a completely different energy, and it's the kind of thing that can get inside a champion's head. Especially when that challenger has already proven he can do the impossible by knocking out someone as durable and technical as Alexander Volkanovski.
155. Now, he was looking at 170. He wanted to leave the weight class, but he didn't. He was the champion. And Ilia relinquished, moved to the division.
And get this, the timeline actually works perfectly for this fight to happen. Topuria is going to need some time to bulk up properly for lightweight. Islam's probably going to defend his belt once more against a contender like Charles Oliveira or Justin Gaethje. That puts us right around late 2024 or early 2025 for a potential super fight. By then, Topuria will have had time to add the necessary muscle mass, Islam will have cleared out more of the lightweight division, and the UFC will have had months to build the hype. It's the perfect storm of timing, talent, and marketability. Plus, think about what this fight represents for the sport itself. We've seen plenty of fighters move up in weight and fail. We've seen champions get comfortable and lose their edge. But we've never seen someone like Topuria, with his combination of power, precision, and unshakable self-belief, attempt something this audacious. This isn't just about two belts. This is about redefining what's possible in modern mixed martial arts.
Going to have to fight and beat Islam. And that is exactly what Ilia tried to do. He went to the media, he worked very hard, he put a finger in Islam's chest, to the point
Now here's what's really going to blow your mind. If Topuria actually pulls this off, if he moves up to lightweight and knocks out Islam Makhachev, he doesn't just become a two-division champion. He becomes the first fighter to hold simultaneous belts in two of the deepest, most competitive divisions in the sport. Featherweight and lightweight aren't weak divisions where you can get lucky and sneak into title contention. These are divisions loaded with killers, with former champions, with guys who have been grinding for years just to get a sniff of title fight. For someone to dominate both divisions simultaneously would be unprecedented in the modern era. We're talking about a level of dominance that we haven't seen since the early days of the UFC when the talent pool was much smaller. This would be like if Prime Anderson Silva decided to move up and dominate light heavyweight while still holding the middleweight belt. It's the kind of achievement that transcends the sport and creates genuine mainstream attention.
Bond. And Khabib said, we're not going to fight him. We're not going to fight him because he's not a 55-pounder. He has to do something, and then we will fight him. He has to do something with somebody. Get a ranking somewhere, and then we'll fight you. But right now, you're not in the rankings. Fair enough. This was their position. But if we have nothing else, right, if time goes by and these guys never touch one another, we are going to have to default back to that. That one guy tried to do it and was willing.
But here's the reality check that Topuria is going to have to face, and it's why this fight is so fascinating from a technical standpoint. Islam Makhachev isn't Alexander Volkanovski. He's not going to stand in front of Topuria and trade shots. He's not going to give him the opportunity to land that fight-ending right hand. Islam's going to try to drag this fight to the ground, tie him up against the fence, make it ugly and uncomfortable. He's going to try to turn this into a wrestling match, not a striking battle. The question becomes, can Topuria's takedown defense and ground game hold up against the best grappler in the division? Can his cardio handle 5 hard rounds at a higher weight class? Can he maintain his knockout power while carrying extra muscle mass? These are legitimate questions that won't be answered until they actually step in the cage together. But here's what we do know. Topuria's been preparing for this moment his entire career. Every training camp, every sparring session, every strength and conditioning workout has been building toward the day when he'd have to prove he belongs with the absolute elite of the sport.
We're forced to. We can't deny these things. So what would Ilia have to do? And I don't think it's as simple as go, okay, he's got to beat Sarukian, and he's got to defeat Gaethje, and he's got to handle this business with Paddy the Baddy. And at that point, he's the greatest ever. I don't know that it works like that. Like, there's a time period, there's a longevity, there's an adversity that you have to deal with. There's an adversity that he's dealing with right now, and he's working his way through. It's a very interesting pick. Ilia for greatest of all time. But there is going to have to be some time. We're talking about...
So here you have it. Ilia Topuria isn't just planning to move up to lightweight. He's planning to rewrite the history books, settle old scores, and prove that his knockout of Volkanovski wasn't a fluke. It was a preview of coming attractions. He's targeting Islam Makhachev not just for the belt, but to validate everything he's ever said about his own abilities. This isn't about building a resume or playing it safe. This is about a young man who believes he's destined for greatness and is willing to risk everything to prove it. The question isn't whether this fight will happen, It's whether the rest of the MMA world is ready for what comes next. So drop it in the comments. Do you think Topuria actually has what it takes to move up and beat Islam, or is he biting off more than he can chew? If this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really happening behind the scenes, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell because this story is just getting started. I'll see you in the next one.
Or he could go to 170, beat Islam, and close the book on this whole thing right now. But isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? We don't call Ilia the greatest 45-pounder of all time, but we do give that distinction to a guy that Ilia shut off. So we talk about to be the greatest of all time, he's got to have this longevity, he's got to fight 5 more guys, and he's got to deal with all these things. Well, or he could just go beat Islam right now. Do you agree?